I don't like Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I like their breakfast sandwiches so much so that even though we were going there for coffee after eating Culver's,
Yeah.
I needed to have a bagel breakfast sandwich
Okay.
because that's what I get when I go in there. Do you have any other places that are like that where like if you go there for a different purpose, you're not happy? Like you use it for a specific job? Because Dunkin' Donuts, the job for me is breakfast sandwiches.
Yeah. I think there are places that I go to, and there's a thing that I really love at that place that I always get. And if I don't get that at that place, then it defeats the purpose of me going there. Like, I love the nachos at Buddy's. If I go to Buddy's, I only go there and lately, it's probably twice a year that we go to Buddy's. If I don't take the opportunity to get those nachos, the Southern barbecue nachos, when we do go there, then I may have missed out for a whole another 6 months on the very best nachos in my life. So if I were to go there and say, I'm not feeling nachos today, I'm just going to get something else, that would be a waste.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go there and not get the Texas Southern nachos. So I think that's what you mean, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. You know, what's weird is my places like that. I normally like the thing that's not necessarily the most popular thing on the menu, I think.
That's such a hipster thing to do, though. That feels like it's playing right into your sensibilities of like, I don't like this mainstream stuff. I'm not gonna go get a Starbucks coffee.
I see it as more weird. Like the places have lots of stuff on the menu, so in a way, you should be able to choose whatever you like. We go to this local diner, and I get a Greek omelet with gyro meat, like every single time.
Yeah.
And every time I tell that to people, they're like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, don't you just get burgers there? That's a burger place.
Yeah.
It's like if this was IHOP, right? Like, and people were like, hey, I love their Big Mouth burgers. And you're like, no, that's a pancake place. You get pancakes there.
Maybe that's why they changed it to IHOB.
you need to get pancakes
to combat
there.
that.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to be like a more like broad mainstream whatever. But the nacho places you're talking about, Buddies.
Yeah.
Like that place to me, I've always gotten nachos there. So why ever get anything else? Like when you get something that's that good, it also makes me not want to get nachos elsewhere. I don't know if you have that.
No, I always get nachos. Hey, where I go.
I will
Make me not like nachos.
Make you not like nachos. Yeah. I don't know if I could do that because nachos are my favorite.
Impossible.
So, I was scrambling for things to do today, and welcome to Make Me Like This. I'm Brandon. This is Jeff. It's Bizarro Day.
Oh,
okay. That was dumb. I'm Jeff. He's Brandon. So I was struggling with picking something, and I'm just gonna go with the thing that was in my head that I kept saying, no, that's dumb.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be able to tell a good story about it, and Brandon's not gonna like it anyway. Rather than anything else that I was trying to make, I was searching for something perfect, and there's not something. So I'm gonna come back to what it is.
Okay.
I want to make you like World Wrestling Entertainment.
WWE,
Yes.
formerly known as WWF.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
And I particularly want to say that my favorite part of WWE is not the actual matches. It's all of the other stuff.
Ooh.
Like all of the interviews,
still within the context of the show, right?
Within the show, but like the wrestling's all right. Like especially, I think they're great athletes. I think the ability to do the fake fighting in kind of like this, it's a dance, it's a performance.
Yeah.
You're relying on another person or a couple of other people. because really, like, in order for it to look cool, or I don't want to say real, because real isn't what I'm going for.
Right. They call it sports entertainment.
They call it sports entertainment. It's sports adjacent, right?
For sure.
It's kind of like when they call all people that play video games competitively e-gamers,
right?
Like we talked about before,
right.
So there's words for all of these things. I really appreciate all the athleticism. I think it's amazing. But something that I really, really dig is I love when they're fighting in the wrestling, and the whole place will go black, and someone's music will come on, and it's a surprise.
The pageantry of like
all the pageantry of all of this stuff, and really none of it matters because they're all, it's all scripted and everything like that. But to a certain extent, like you can only script it so far, right? You have to go out there and you have to make your body do what it does,
right?
And I think that there's a lot of improvisation. There's a dance to it. Like you have, you're only as good as you make your partner look.
Yep.
Because you have to really sell stuff. You have to sell when someone suplexes you, like the pain, the way that you land, like all of that can make the other person look like they're powerful or they're getting the upper hand or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate how much everyone relies on one another. And in particular, I don't watch WWE live anymore.
Do you watch it at all anymore?
I watch YouTube videos, like YouTube recaps of things.
Really? Okay.
And I mostly skip over the condensed matches, and I just watch like Becky Lynch talk.
And Becky Lynch is
she's a WWE superstar.
Okay.
Right now. She's kind of she was starting to rise in prominence. They put her against Ronda Rousey, who's also in WWE now because she's washed up as a MMA fighter.
Oh wow. That's a leap.
Yeah. and so she's in there. I think she's maybe the Raw Women's Champion. Because they got it separated, like Raw and SmackDown are the two different like stables or productions or whatever.
Okay.
I understand it a lot less than I did when I was actively watching it in the Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock era. That's like the era of when I was a preteen that I came up on watching like SmackDown Live regularly or whatever.
So how into it were you at that time?
I would say that like I was pretty into it. I wasn't as into it as I was like the traditional sports that I was into.
Yeah.
But it was something that it was appointment television for me between the ages of 12 and 15.
Okay. That helps contextualize sort of like your affinity towards it.
However, I definitely haven't watched a full production on like from start to finish since I was probably 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And since like going into college, I just lost it. I didn't really follow it much anymore. I've been getting into it now more because I think I was watching like some old matches, probably like some old Undertaker matches, or again, I love the Undertaker because of the character, right? Like this undead guy, his music is really like creepy, and he walks out to the ring real slowly.
Yeah.
Like I love all of these like
the characters.
It's really campy, but I think when I was 12 to 15, I was like, Stone Cold Steve Austin's a badass. He comes out to the ring, smashes beer cans together, guzzles beer. The Rock is like the epitome of cool, like people's eyebrow. And
he was a heel first, though, wasn't he?
Yeah. Okay. And then he was so popular that he
turned him good.
He basically became babyface. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's heel and babyface.
Those are both The Rock?
Those are terms for like wrestling characters. Like if you turn
Like genre of character?
no, it's sort of like you hear a lot like heel turn, where like a babyface character will turn heel, where basically a good guy goes to a bad guy, and in a lot of cases, the foundation of their character doesn't really change. Sometimes wrestlers get entirely new characters, and it's almost like they're reborn and never existed before. But like, it just how they maintain these characters over time. Like the Undertaker still wrestles every once in a while. They pull him out of mothballs. I think they struggle a little bit to like keep people's attention, so they bring out these legends that they know that has draw. But it just kind
of bring the old folks back, or the old fans back into the fold.
I think the old folks is a good in
way that
to
case. Probably, yeah.
There's guys that are 50 years old that are wrestling every once in a
legends,
while. Yeah. And they put them in matches, and sometimes have them defeat these 20-something-year-old wrestlers and stuff. And that just kind of speaks to more of why I like it. I mean, it's not rooted in reality whatsoever.
Would you agree with the sentiment that it's soap operas for men? I mean, that's an antiquated term, but like, you know, I've heard that in the past.
There's some similarities to it, to where like in order to enjoy it, you kind of have to suspend your desire for reality.
Yeah.
Like you want it to be something more than that. You want it to be to the extreme.
It's in that it's an ongoing story with a rotating cast of characters that lasts decades, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, it's ultimately not about the wrestling, but there's characters and storylines that you care about, and team ups and things of that nature that get you to tune in next week, right?
Right.
It's not, I want to see the move that this guy is going to do. It's really, I want to see the resolution of this plot line.
Yeah. And I think like wrestling fans that are really into it still, I would not categorize myself as a wrestling fan that's like super into it still.
Yeah.
They're following all of that. They're reading blogs that like it leaks out like what's going to happen and stuff like that, which is it's kind of a cool. A lot of people hate it. Like say like it's so stupid. If you know what's going to happen, why do you want to watch it? But it's like it is an art, and I think the ongoing nature of soap operas and the kind of close to real life, but really kind of crazy out there-ness of the characters. Those two things, I think, are similar. Knowing my current state, something that I wanted to mention to you is just like a way to possibly be okay with liking it. I know you've mentioned in the past, like, you don't watch a lot of TV. That is like outside the realm of I'm going to watch this either as a family or just with my wife, and we're going to focus on series, and really like if it's not high priority,
right?
Like I have so many, and you have so much content in your queue, that something like that is never going to
it's deep dives into a smaller selection of things.
Yeah. I find it really interesting that, in particular, I mentioned Becky Lynch earlier. I've followed kind of her rise from relatively unknown. I think people that are more discerning saw it longer ago, but a few months ago, she started to challenge Ronda Rousey for a title shot and everything like that, and she entered into, if wrestling fans are gonna listen to this, they're gonna skewer me, but I think she might have been in the Royal Rumble that she was in, but one of the other wrestlers actually punched her in the face, messed up, didn't do it right, and broke her nose,
right,
and she was like an absolute mess. Like bloody mess, and had a concussion. And it cost her the ability to be in the title match with Ronda Rousey. Maybe it was like it was like a Thursday night event, and then there was a pay-per-view on the Sunday that followed. It was like a short period of time.
Yeah.
She was supposed to fight Rousey in the title
Medically
event
could not compete.
and couldn't.
Okay.
Right. And WWE did this whole behind the scenes stuff where they were showing her like talking about like she just got out seeing the doctor and she was like, doctor says I can't wrestle. I want to get out there and
Was that real or was that like put on in the same like kind of storyline?
It's like in the in between space. Like that's real. That part's real, but like she's somewhat still in character.
Yeah.
She goes around to the late night shows now because she's been on done the late night show rounds, and like she's in character but not in character. She's just like an intriguing personality to me.
Interesting. I've never heard of this person before.
So like in particular, I think that Becky Lynch is someone that I'm like interested in because Google now has been saying you're interested in this.
you showed
in my
enough
feeds.
interest in it that it's like a.
I watched enough Undertaker videos where it recommended. I got into WWE's pipeline and it started feeding me this stuff. And you know what? Google was right.
Yeah.
I liked seeing it. And they're mostly showing me promos. So I'm following her advancement without watching her wrestle hardly
just
at all.
by like the headings of articles.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So is there a differentiation between Ronda Rousey and this Becky and the WWE divas?
So
from what I understand, like before this conversation, my impression was anything that was the men were WWE and anything that was women was the divas, which that doesn't sit well with me.
Becky Lynch's self-proclaimed nickname is the Man.
Okay,
Which
so
is
she went out of
awesome
her
that you
way
just said
to separate herself from the because to me the whole diva thing is and this is from a very ignorant perspective of someone who doesn't participate or hasn't watched or followed this at all is like really pretty girls who are like jostling each other to get the men excited and it's very like misogynistic and they're spraying each other with like cans of beer or whatever.
During the Attitude Era especially, like late 90s and into the early part of the 2000s.
Yeah.
That was how women's wrestling was. And I think
it feels really antiquated.
Yep. And I can't speak for the whole change of direction that they've gone because I'm not actually watching every stitch of film that comes out of these events.
Yeah.
However, I think bringing Ronda Rousey in, and they've got way more women now. They had an entire women's pay-per-view event.
Did they?
And they brought back like some really popular like older women from the Attitude Era, like Trish Stratus and Leah and other women that were like kind of the elite women back then. They had that whole thing, but I think the storylines are more like these are wrestlers, and they're women that can actually
they're not props.
Wrestle. No,
the other ones felt like props.
And you know Ronda Rousey. I mean, Ronda Rousey could like actually kick most people's ass, right? And so and she's an athlete, and like I said, I'm not watching a lot of the matches right now. And I probably should just to see how technically, I'm not going to say technically sound because it's not like I'm an expert on it, but like how much entertainment value like I have from like, wow, I really like how they supported everything that I talked about there.
Yeah.
But you make a good point that I didn't like intentionally think about. I've been drawn to the women's side of stuff that they're doing because it feels like more compelling of characters, more so than like these are pretty women, which Becky Lynch is a attractive woman.
Okay.
And I think Ronda Rousey is an attractive woman too. And you know, other other women, I think that that's still something that they look for. But again, Dwayne Johnson's attractive man
Sure.
as well, and like they're on TV,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But
Yeah.
as far as like the objectification, like I feel like that's not at least front and center, and it's more like in line with where we're at in our cultural evolution.
Yeah.
In today's world.
Which hasn't always been the case, right?
No, I think WWE, their demographics are historically have not been towards like equal rights.
Well, it's almost been the opposite, right?
They've been one of the most heinous
yes,
kind of offenders of that.
and I think that's why I've had the whole concept of WWE at an arm's length, because my exposure to it was that, and like and seeing the people in the crowd, and I'm like, I don't identify with those people at all, and I don't want to be lumped in with those people holding up the Austin 316 signs and like rip her panties off or whatever it is that they're saying. So like,
it's crazy. I didn't even think about that before, but like I loved Stone Cold, and was never like that demographic. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like,
and that completely like, forget about anything that's happening in the ring. All the stuff outside the ring, I'm like, oh my God, I feel out of place. So I actually went to a WWE event, probably
oh man,
early 2000s.
I've never been. I can't wait to hear this.
Okay. So a good buddy of ours was a local DJ, and he got tickets to the wrestling event at the Breslin Center, the local the local place there.
The local hangout for the student folk.
Yeah. Well, okay.
For
So
athletic events.
So this is important to the context of the story. And then my buddy Josh, we've talked about in previous episodes, who he and I made circles together, and he let us use the
which
theme
I'm
song.
liking, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Four episodes.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So we went to and the rest of the guys that I went with, big WWE fans. Me, no idea whatsoever what this is all about. So we go, and the Breslin Center is where the Michigan State Spartans play. Magic Johnson, the most famous alumni of that team, and the most popular player. His jerseys hanging from the rafters there. So in this match, a guy comes out in chainmail, right? I think it's Scott Steiner or something like that.
Okay.
And during this, the posturing part of the process, they're, talking and stuff like that. And the guy who's the bad guy looks up into the rafters and says, "I'm not going to wrestle or something to the effect of, you guys glorify people with AIDS here." Or something like that.
Oh, I don't even
boo, lots of boos.
That's awful.
And I'm getting pissed because I'm like, Magic Johnson's one of my favorite, is like the epitome of Michigan State basketball, and I'm an alumnus, and I was getting pissed, And then I feel myself like, okay, what's happening here? They're intentionally trying to rile people up, right? And there's just so much of that. And, I was talking about this afterwards with someone else who was there, and they're like, you know what? Magic Johnson's brother was there, and he was laughing. That's kind of like how, it's all for show, right?
And it's so extreme to the point where like if you get really upset about it, they've got you because you're just too into it.
Right. It's like Rush Limbaugh, Howard Stern. It's like if you're pissed off, you're listening. If you're really into it, you're listening. Either way, they've got subscribers, right?
And if you laugh at it, I mean, you're probably, that's kind of where I'm at. Like if I heard, I just laughed. I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and at that same event, so this is about the time where Stacy Keibler, she used to date George Clooney. So she was one of like the ring girls, right? And I think throughout her time with the organization, she went from just the person who was like the arm candy walking out with the guys to one of the divas that is actually like wrestling in the thing. But you know, we had pretty good seats, and so she comes and stands in front of me, and then like just kind of like bends over a little bit and looks back at me and like does a little wiggle shake. I'm like, what is happening here? I didn't know this was part of the show or something, but I was like, wow. So then I like look up online and like, who is this person and stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Man.
And the part that, so this interaction with this person made me like look into it more, and was like, okay, well, you know, what's going on with this? And then I saw all the clips of like she's walking in, and then the other girl will rip off her skirt, and she's like just there in her underpants or something,
Yep.
or like they'll rip her shirt, and then she has to like cover up so that, you know, she's like embarrassed of me. And I'm like, this is really sick. You know, I was like, I am not for any of this. So that's why I was asking about like, okay, so when you talk about this, you know, Ronda Rousey and this other woman who are like really, really the stars right now, that's a huge departure from what my exposure was at that time, which was like, this is really kind of chauvinistic.
I don't know any male wrestlers right now, and Google's not feeding me.
Yeah.
Any of those videos.
Maybe there's so much of an emphasis on the others that that's the highlight right now.
Yeah, it could be. I'm enjoying it. I think it's really cool to see. So it's hard to explain. She's Irish.
Okay.
And I think she leans into that accent really, really hard. It's kind of like a McGregor versus Mayweather kind of thing that they got going with Rousey and Becky Lynch. And I don't know. I just think you should check out the character.
Okay.
But the other thing too, there is like, no matter what they're trying to accomplish or the time that they're in, like wrestling's always about being a departure from life. Like
escapism.
Did they actually say that? Like, no, that's not okay. Like I saw a video recently, it's a non-WWE thing, where a female wrestler appeared to take her tampon out and shove it down her opponent's throat.
What? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, she actually did this. Now, I don't think it was like she was using it currently. But like that's the thing, is like that's always kind of part of wrestling culture, is that they do go too far.
They go there.
They go there, and sometimes it's not met well. And obviously that's a non-WWE event. I feel like WWE is more of a mainstream audience, and that would just not be acceptable.
They've got a brand to protect.
And they got TV deals, right?
Right.
Like this was something I watched on a Twitter video with a shaky phone thing, you know?
Like mall trampolines on Black Friday.
But again, if it's wrestling and it's popular, Google's hitting me up with it. Like, hey, this is what you like. And you know what? I watched this and I was like, you know what? I'm glad that I know about this. I'm not really a fan of this, but I'm glad that I know that people are doing this in the field.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. You grew up with a brother who, what's the age difference between you and your brother?
My brother is, I think, 14 months younger than me.
Right. So you guys are really close in age.
Yeah.
And at the time that you were really into this, you know, into the WWE, were you and he like beating each other up and jumping off of the bed and landing on each other and giving each other noogies and stuff?
So my brother, I think he's not a black belt, but my brother did Taekwondo for a long time. So, and my brother was a wrestler in high school.
Yeah.
And I even think that maybe my interest in wrestling was because he was into it. It might come from him.
Interesting. And he's your younger brother.
He's my younger brother. My younger brother has been able to beat me up ever since I can remember.
Sure.
He is my younger brother, but he is my enforcer.
Yeah.
He's
always been more physically
inclined.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I love my brother. I don't say that
Yeah.
to say he's a meathead or anything.
Right.
But he's a meathead. But we used
So you
to.
guys are watching this together. You're beating the crap out
We
of
used to
each
make
other.
championship belts out of paper plates and wrap them in foil,
Yes.
and then use his taekwondo belts to make the belts.
Yeah.
Like we'd get really involved, and then we'd come up with character names, and we'd stage whole events where we played multiple different characters that we had created.
Yeah.
This
This was part of your
yeah.
relationship with him, was your affinity for this thing and something that you could experience together, reenact together, right?
Yeah, and all fake stuff, but we did get hurt.
I'm sure you
right?
did.
Like,
yeah.
but we thought it was. I mean, we thought it was cool. We used to play. Play WrestleMania just as much as GoldenEye,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
just as much as Mario Kart. I mean, like those
Sure.
were the three games at that point in time.
Yeah.
It was a really cool game. You could customize characters.
You could make your own wrestler, right?
Yeah, so you can make yourself, but
Yeah.
more likely, like you make like these outlandish characters and you
Yeah.
build persona. I've always been into that. My brother's been into like the actual physical
Sure.
part of it, just because he was into it.
Yeah.
And so it goes back
Definitely.
like that for me.
Definitely. And I, who grew up with three sisters, did not have that experience, right? And I remember going over to my buddy Dan's house. Like, I spent the night at my buddy Dan's house in 6th grade. And he has a younger brother. And Saturday morning, the WWE show, I mean, at the time it was WWF, the show came on. It was like a Saturday morning show. Or it must have been noon, right? After the cartoons, there was the show.
Is this like late 80s?
This
Early
was
90s?
probably early 90s, yeah.
So like Bret Hart. and
You know what? Honestly, I feel like
Ultimate
it was
Warrior.
Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan still and Iron Sheik
Road
and
Warriors.
Roddy Piper or whatever.
Yeah. All those.
I might
Like the
be,
golden era.
This might be an amalgamation of a bunch of different memories for me, but I remember it coming on and I'm like, I don't want to be watching this. And then my buddy Dan and his brother, they're watching it and getting into it and then start smacking each other and like putting each other in headlocks and stuff. And I was like, wait, what's going on? It's sort of like a the snake charmer, like who plays the flute, and then all of a sudden the snake starts dancing. This thing comes on, and then you hear the ding, 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 and then you just start beating the crap out of each other.
Yep. I remember not so much just me and my brother as kids, but like real little. Had to have been less than 7 years old.
Yeah.
I remember the golden WWF logo. I remember Bret Hart was like the man at that point in time.
Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels. I was a big Bret Hart fan in the early 90s. But I remember the early 90s, and we were living in a more densely populated neighborhood at that point before we moved out to a less of a suburban neighborhood. And we would go over to my friend's house, and my friend was like, God, Jason didn't get me into it. My brother didn't get me into it. It was like these kids made me aware of it in the neighborhood. But yeah, like I went over and I remember watching the event or whatever, and then all of a sudden I'd get like hit, right? Like and then all of a sudden we're fighting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it's God, I don't know that I'd want my son necessarily. Getting
it's different
into it.
now.
Yeah, but I watch it now and it doesn't make me turn to my wife and clothesline her.
Wow. Yeah.
That would not end well.
No, it wouldn't. Not for you. I mean, I know your wife would kick your ass. Mm-hmm. For sure. I was not a wild kid. I was not like a rough house boy. And in a group of like neighborhood rough house boys, I would find a way out of that situation,
Really?
and everyone's in the dark basement throwing stuff at each other.
Do you
I find
think
a way
that's in
to
your
get out.
DNA, or do you think that's because you grew up with sisters?
I think it's in my DNA, because you know what, my sisters and I, we would wrestle and fight and throw things at each other and stuff like that. Just not in that same like grandiose WWF way.
Right.
It was different, but it was.
Was it more authentic? It was like you were pissed. Or,
yeah, the character development was way better. No. It probably was a result of me being a smaller kid, compared to my peers.
Yeah.
And not wanting to get the crap beat out of me. So I think that was why I was just kind of like hesitant.
Yeah.
I think to the whole thing. But they had that during that time. They had that cartoon, which was the Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan and stuff. I don't know if this is probably before your time, but there was a Saturday morning cartoon that was these characters, using their strengths to like solve crimes or whatever.
That was the golden era of wrestling, man.
And then it led into the actual real wrestling.
Oh, so that would come on later.
Yeah, I don't know what it was called, but it was.
By the time I got to the point where I could make decisions to watch programming at a certain period of time,
yeah,
they had shifted away from the weekends, except for pay-per-views,
right?
And it was Monday night Raw and Thursday night SmackDown. It's interesting how there's different eras in my life of like. When I was real young, the era that you're talking about, and just getting my shit kicked in by the neighborhood kids in their house, in their basement, and then probably like the late 90s, early 2000s, where me and my brother would just tune in, appointment television kind of stuff, and we'd stage our matches and everything. But like I kid you not, there was never times where we intentionally were trying to hurt each other. We ended up hurting each other because we were doing the stuff we were doing.
Of course.
But my brother in particular has always exercised restraint, like with me. I think it's because he knew he could really, really hurt me. Because not only was he like more physically strong than I was, but he was actually trained
right
to do things.
Yeah. And
I wasn't. So it always gave me an advantage because I hold no quarter, and I beat him with his own shoe as adults at one point. But and that's transitioned into like this adult period where like I'm not really a fan.
Yeah.
But it's like just there.
The appreciation for it.
And I'm just
the fondness for it.
Is
it nostalgia, really?
I think I'd be lying if I told you that there wasn't a lot of nostalgia there. But the enjoyment that I have right now is distinctly different. I don't watch this stuff like with the kind of investment that I had with like I want The Rock to win every single match. It's more like, wow, that character's kind of interesting. I haven't seen women wrestlers kind of like developed this way, and the rivalries where like it actually, even though I'm not even watching them perform, beyond like their interviews and their in-ring taunts and stuff like that, it like there's something about, again, this Becky Lynch character that just makes me like her. And for context for people that aren't you, like I really liked Ronda Rousey when she was mowing people
UFC.
down in UFC. And I was just watching the replays because I wasn't paying for pay-per-views.
Oh, sure, of course.
Right? But like she's not interesting to me as a WWE character, as a wrestler. Like I think like
possibly because it feels like a downgrade from where she was.
Sure.
Right.
I think that's a lot of it. But like the trash talk isn't as good.
Oh,
like her interviews aren't as good. She's just like a little bit more straightforward, and she lacks charisma.
Sure.
Like Becky Lynch has that. Like she makes me feel like The Rock made me feel.
Yeah. Of
like, it's not real. It's sensationalized. That they're playing it up. That they're playing a character. But she just got it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Where and I think The Rock is an undeniable talent where he's transcended wrestling and he's just an all around great entertainer, right?
Yeah.
And that's just what's got me kind of I won't go as far as to say passionate about it, but just like interested. It's like sticking with me. I've watched probably like 20 to 30 videos of hers right now of non in-ring performances, and I dig it.
Yeah,
especially this whole like bloody nose and like seeing behind the scenes and watching her interviews on the talk shows and stuff like that. Like, I just think it's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm tempted to tell you the story of my friend having to find crack for Jake the Snake Roberts. But we don't have time for that, and that's not really my story to tell, but it is a true story. Instead, I want to share with you something that kind of made me appreciate WWE, despite all of my hang-ups about it and experiences from it. I was, after I graduated high school, I started working for a camp for kids with special needs and continued to do so throughout my college experience. So I'm working with these special needs kids, and all of them were super into WWE. I mean, they're wearing the Stone Cold shirts, and this was probably about Stone Cold's peak, right? This is when he was the most popular. And I was really close with one of the students in particular. His name Jason, Down syndrome guy, really big, strong dude, but the sweetest guy. Like, he was just his heart, which is ironic, right? Because with Down syndrome, there's almost always a heart condition and a heart problem that requires surgery and stuff like that. But these kids, I tell you, have got the biggest hearts of anyone I've ever known. And Jason was incredibly special to me. And he was all about WWE, drawing pictures and talking about, oh man, last night on SmackDown, this and that. And so as I had to learn more about it to carry on these conversations, tell me, what do you like about Stone Cold? And so, oh man, did he do like a little like like a hand gesture or something? I'm not sure what the whole thing was.
Well, Stone Cold did a lot of hand gestures.
Oh, the bird, the middle finger.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there, Diamond Dallas Page.
The DDP. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That I must be thinking of a bunch of different things, but
I'm glad I have that knowledge for you.
It's when I think of the WWE and that sort of time, and this was late 90s. I think of Jason and his giant Stone Cold shirt and the smile on his face when he would come in and he would tell me about what happened on the show the night before and acting out the moves and everything like that. It brought me so much joy because it brought him so much joy.
Right.
And the smile on his face, and he would laugh and laugh and laugh, and he had these little glasses that sat on the end of his nose, and he'd push them up, and he's running around and doing this stuff
like a shorter guy, shorter guy, and then he's got
short but very very heavy.
Yeah, and then and then the small
and then the glasses on top. Oh man, just the kindest, most warm person.
Yeah,
that I have known. And I loved that he loved this and would share that with me and draw pictures for me of Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I have in my possession a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt.
Really?
Somewhere in my closet.
So did you watch
stuff? Never.
Never. You just kind of... Again, like
what I knew of it was through his stories.
Through his stories,
they could have been completely false. I don't know,
and nothing else.
That's all I cared about.
Nothing else.
No.
Like you saw his shirts, and so like you knew. Like it's not like you went and even like Googled pictures or.
No, I mean this would have been 7 or 8 years before I went to that event.
Okay,
so I had no prior experience to this.
It's non-related, but it's just. I think it's so important for young people to be so wildly passionate about things that either matter universally or are just niche and entertainment for them, right?
For sure.
Like whether a kid is passionate about becoming a doctor and going to Africa and curing horrible diseases, or they're super into Stone Cold Steve Austin and want to draw pictures and share that joy with anyone. I just think it's like super important to encourage young people, especially, and adults to stick with it. It's just, over time it becomes harder and harder for you become more balanced as you get older.
For sure.
But just like, I see it a lot with boys.
Yeah.
More than girls, although girls are not, eliminated from the equation of like having just a really niche passion that they obsess over. Sure. I was a middle school teacher, so like that's kind of the age range that I'm thinking of when I'm talking about that. But like, like my students got me into Mac Miller.
Do they really?
Yeah. And I love Mac Miller outright.
Yeah.
Now I just appreciate him as an artist, especially as he evolved. And it's tragic that he's not around to continue that work. But like my kids would come in and like secretly want to listen to that in the back of the classroom.
Yeah, with you?
Not with me at first. Okay. Like. It wasn't acceptable. Right. And I think you see that a lot with kids. Like I don't think wrestling was really acceptable to my parents. Like my parents thought it was dumb, fake, and potentially harmful. And they might have been onto something because we wanted to act it out and everything like that.
Right.
My parents had the same impression of The Simpsons.
True.
And
true,
every kid that I grew up with was obsessed with The Simpsons because I think it was like a little bit
naughty.
Naughty, yeah. I think that's a good term. But I think kids need that. I think you need to be able to escape sometimes. I think you need to be able to look to something because normally, like the kids see the good.
Yeah.
In these things that might be rough. And while their parents see the bad sometimes.
Sure.
And to me, that repeats generation after generation a little bit.
For sure.
But, yeah. So now that I've talked about Mac Miller, do you what do you think about WWE now that we had this conversation?
Yeah. So, it sounds like it has evolved from what I knew and my exposure to it to where it is now, where it is less rooted in the chauvinism and misogyny and just like the and there was a real almost white pride-ish aspect to it where any of the bad guys who were
Undertaker had Kid Rock as his theme music for a stretch of time.
That says it all right there, right?
Yeah.
But like, the Middle Eastern characters who were evil, right? And
outright racism in misogyny.
Yeah. Yep. So that
not good things.
No. That was my main concern with anything WWE related. And my assumption was always like it's sort of low class. Right. And it was
still might be.
And well, but it's
yeah.
So and that was my fear was like looking at the people in the crowd chanting so angrily and then like experiencing that in person, like the shaking of the fist towards the people in the ring and stuff felt really like cultish. And I was like, I don't want any of this.
You were anxious at the
I really
bet you were.
felt like a fish out of water, and I felt like I stood out,
Yeah.
Except for when Stacey Keebler stood in front of me and was like,
then you felt right at home,
like fake flirting with me. I was like, well, maybe this ain't all bad, but no. It sounds like they've made concerted efforts to be more with the times and. As a pure entertainment thing that doesn't harm anybody, except for if you're jumping off of like the banister to body slam your brother. But in terms of like misogyny and racism and stuff like that, if they're more inclusive, if they're looking to be more inclusive, then the things that the hangups I have about it are less. And if you're thinking about it from a pure entertainment aspect of it, then I can get on board more than 10, 15, 20, oh my God, probably 30 years ago now. I'm old.
Hey, I'm getting there too.
That's right. So
I remember Hulk Hogan. So.
I hope Hulk Hogan remembers Hulk Hogan.
I don't know, man. All those steroids. Who knows what that does to you?
Yeah. Okay, so ask me point blank.
Do you now like WWE?
Yeah, I think so. I'll say yes because I think you've made some compelling arguments about the things that I don't like about it no longer being so prominent that it deters me from appreciating it as a art form. So that's 5-4. 5 points for you, 4 points to me. Not too bad. Pretty good. Yeah, I bet you didn't think I had so many anecdotes about
I was
about
not
WWE.
expecting to get so many anecdotes about WWE.
Yeah. And we'll save Jake the Snake for another time. Well, thanks for listening to Make Me Like This. I'm Jeff. No, I'm Brandon.
I'm Brandon.
Yeah.
It's Bizarro Day.
That's right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.